The massive chamber stretched endlessly in all directions, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Strange creatures with multiple eyes, floating gas clouds that spoke through vibrations, and towering metal beings that clinked when they moved. In the center of it all stood Admiral Kim Tae-ho, the only human among 847 different alien species. Kim's black military uniform looked plain compared to the colorful robes, shimmering scales and glowing crystals around him. His hands stayed steady at his sides, even though he knew this meeting would change everything for humanity. The air felt heavy with tension like the moment before lightning strikes. High Chancellor Vextar rose from his crystal throne. The Zephyrian leader looked like a living diamond, with sharp edges that caught the light from 1,000 different angles. When he moved, rainbow patterns danced across the walls. His voice filled the chamber without any need for speakers. "We gather today because of a threat," Vextar announced. His words translated instantly into 847 different languages. The humans have spread to 12 star systems in just 50 years. No species has ever expanded so quickly. This aggressive growth threatens our peaceful galaxy. Kim felt every alien eye in the chamber turn toward him. Some looked curious, others afraid, and many showed clear anger. He had expected this day would come, but hoping and knowing were different things. Captain Park Ji-woo stepped forward from the human delegation area. The young woman's diplomatic uniform bore the blue and white colors of Earth's United Nations. She had trained for years to speak at galactic meetings, but her voice still trembled slightly. "Honored delegates," she began, using the formal greeting required by galactic law. "Our expansion has been peaceful. We have established trade relationships with 47 species. We have provided medical aid to colonies suffering from disease. We have shared our technology freely with anyone who asked." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some delegates nodded in agreement. The Kalari, who looked like giant butterflies, clicked their approval. Their agricultural worlds had grown rich using human farming techniques. The Manthari, rock-like beings from the mining systems, stayed silent, but Kim noticed their worried expressions. They had bought human mining equipment in secret deals. "Silence." Vextar's voice boomed like thunder. The rainbow lights from his crystal body turned angry red. "Your species cannot be trusted. Humans are unpredictable. You start wars then make peace. You destroy then create. You are dangerous to galactic stability." Other delegates began shouting their agreement. The Drakmar Empire representatives, who looked like armored lizards, hissed their approval. They had always wanted to expand their territory but feared human peacekeeping forces would stop them. "Today we vote on Resolution 2847, Vextar continued. "The Terran Quarantine Edict. All trade with humans will end. All communication will cease. All cooperation will be forbidden. The humans will be completely cut off from galactic civilization." Kim's heart sank, but he kept his face calm. Years of military training had taught him never to show weakness to enemies. And looking around the chamber, he realized most of these aliens had become enemies without him knowing it. The voting began immediately. Each species announced their decision in their own language. The translations filled the air like a storm of voices. The Rigelian Collective votes yes. The Tau Ceti Union votes yes. The Vegan Republic votes yes. A few species voted no. The Kalari delegation leader, a beautiful creature with wings like stained glass, spoke sadly. "We vote no. The humans have been good friends to us." But their voice was lost in the sea of yes votes. Kim counted silently as the votes poured in. The final tally appeared on screens throughout the chamber in bright red numbers that seemed to burn his eyes. 689 civilizations voted yes. Only 134 voted. Number 24 abstained, too scared to pick a side. "The resolution passes," Vextar declared. His crystal body now glowed with satisfaction. "Humanity is officially banned from all galactic trade, communication, and interaction. You are alone in the universe once again." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens celebrated, others argued, and a few looked ashamed. Kim watched it all with the feeling that he was seeing the end of everything humanity had worked for among the stars. Vextar raised one sharp crystal arm for silence. "Admiral Kim, you have 72 hours to evacuate all human presence from neutral space stations, trade posts, and diplomatic facilities. After that deadline, any human found in galactic space will be arrested or destroyed." Kim stepped forward to the speaking platform. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "We understand your decision," he said simply. "We will comply with your deadline." As the official session ended, aliens began filing out of the chamber in groups. Many avoided looking at the small human delegation. Others stared with mixtures of curiosity and pity. The Kalari delegate flew over to Kim and whispered, "We're sorry, Admiral. This is wrong." Commander Lee Ha-jun approached Kim as the chamber emptied. The younger officer's face showed the anger that Kim kept hidden. "Sir, what are your orders? How do we respond to this?" Kim looked through the massive transparent wall that showed the sprawling space station beyond. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds docked at the station's ports. This had been humanity's gateway to the galaxy, their chance to be part of something bigger than one small blue planet. Now it was ending. But as Kim watched human cargo ships preparing for their final departure, he felt something unexpected. Not despair but determination. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that destroyed other species completely. "We adapt, Commander," Kim said quietly, his voice filled with quiet strength. "We always do. They think they're punishing us by cutting us off from their civilization. But maybe they're just freeing us to build something better." The end. 6 months had passed since the galaxy turned its back on humanity. The quarantine was supposed to crush the human spirit and force them to beg for forgiveness. Instead, something completely different was happening across human space and beyond. On New Sol, the most successful farming colony in human space, Director Choi Min-ho stood in his massive greenhouse complex watching robots tend to rows of perfect vegetables. The crops grew faster and bigger than anything they had produced before the quarantine. His workers moved with excitement and pride that had been missing for years. "Admiral Kim," Min-ho said into his communication device, his voice filled with amazement. "You need to see these numbers. Without galactic supply chains telling us how to do things, we have innovated faster than ever before. Our new hydroponic systems are producing 3 times more food than our old methods." The holographic image of Admiral Kim appeared above the communication pad. Even across the vast distance of space, Min-ho could see the satisfaction in his commander's eyes. "Excellent work, Director. How did you achieve such improvements?" "We stopped trying to copy alien farming methods," Min-ho explained, walking between towering plants that reached toward artificial suns. "Instead, we went back to basic human problem-solving. We asked simple questions. Why do plants need soil? What if we could make better soil? What if we could control every aspect of growth?" The results spoke for themselves. Tomatoes grew as large as melons. Wheat produced grain so rich that a single handful could feed a person for a day. Rice plants grew in perfect geometric patterns that maximized every inch of growing space. "The Galactic Council cut us off from their agricultural databases," Min-ho continued. "So we had to think for ourselves again. And it turns out human thinking works better than alien thinking, at least for human problems." Meanwhile, in a completely different part of the galaxy, chaos was spreading. On the Manthari homeworld, a planet of living rock and crystal caves, mining consortium leader Threxanael paced in his office deep underground. His 4 arms waved frantically as he reviewed disaster reports from mining operations across their territory. Threxanael was a creature of stone and metal, evolved from a world where rocks moved and minerals grew like plants. His people were natural miners, but even they had limits. The efficient extraction techniques they had secretly bought from human engineers were no longer available. Without human innovation, their mining operations struggled. "Production has dropped by 40%, his assistant reported, the words echoing through the crystal chamber. "Our shareholders are demanding answers. Some are calling for your removal from leadership." Threxanael's rocky face showed cracks of worry. The Manthari had grown rich by selling rare minerals to the galaxy. But their success depended on human mining technology that could extract precious metals from impossible places. Human engineers had taught them how to mine without destroying their living planet. Now that knowledge was forbidden. "Contact our black market sources," Threxanael ordered quietly. "We need human technology even if we have to break galactic law to get it." On Harmony Station, a human medical colony orbiting a distant star, Dr. Yoon Seoa worked late into the night in her laboratory. Around her, screens showed medical research that would have amazed the greatest alien scientists. But she had no alien scientists to share it with anymore. "Team meeting," she called to her staff. Doctors and researchers gathered around her central workstation, their faces showing the exhaustion and excitement of people making history. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council cut us off from their medical databases, Dr. Yoon explained. They thought this would set back human medicine by centuries. Instead, we have been forced to rediscover everything ourselves. And somehow we are making better progress than ever before. She activated a holographic display showing their latest breakthrough. "We have developed a treatment for cellular decay that works better than anything in the galactic medical archives. Because we could not copy alien medicine, we had to understand why human bodies work the way they do. The research team looked at data that showed remarkable results. Diseases that had plagued humanity for generations were becoming treatable. Injuries that would have been permanent could now be healed completely. The human lifespan was extending naturally as their bodies learned to repair themselves more effectively. The aliens shared their medical knowledge with us, Dr. Yoon continued. But their medicine was designed for their bodies, not ours. When we were forced to start over, we discovered that human bodies have capabilities we never knew existed. Far from human space, on agricultural worlds throughout the galaxy, disaster was spreading. The Kalari, beautiful butterfly-like creatures who had become the galaxy's most successful farmers, faced their worst crisis in centuries. Their crops were failing and famine threatened their entire civilization. The Kalari had grown dependent on human farming innovations. Human agricultural techniques had made their worlds bloom with abundance. Now, cut off from human knowledge, their traditional farming methods could not feed their growing population. Secret networks began forming across the galaxy. Alien traders risked severe punishment to smuggle human technology and knowledge to desperate worlds. Black markets emerged where human innovations were worth more than rare gems or precious metals. On Earth, in the Great Assembly Hall of the United Nations, President Nam Eugene stood before representatives of every human nation and colony. The hall was packed with people who had worried that the quarantine would destroy human civilization. Instead, they were witnessing something remarkable. "My fellow humans," President Nam began, her voice carrying the confidence of a species that had survived every challenge the universe could throw at them. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council voted to isolate us completely. They wanted to cut us off from their civilization, believing this would weaken us and force us to surrender. She paused, looking out at faces filled with pride and determination. Instead, they have freed us to become everything we were meant to be. Without their rules and restrictions, without their insistence that we follow their methods, we have rediscovered what makes humanity special. The quarantine meant to destroy humanity was creating the opposite effect. Humans were innovating, growing, and thriving in isolation. Meanwhile, the galaxy that rejected them was discovering just how much they had depended on human creativity and problem-solving. The end. 1 year had passed since the galaxy declared war on humanity through isolation. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his newest warship, a vessel that would have been impossible to build just 12 months earlier. The battleship Indomitable stretched over 2 kilometers long, its hull gleaming with armor stronger than anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. Kim ran his hand along the command console, feeling the smooth surface that responded to his thoughts through advanced neural interfaces. Human engineers, cut off from alien technology, had been forced to think in completely new ways. The results were beyond anything they had imagined possible. "Sir," called Communications Officer Bae Du-yun from his station across the bridge. The young officer's face showed concern as multiple screens flickered with incoming messages. "We are receiving distress signals from 17 different sectors of the galaxy. Something big is happening out there." Kim walked over to examine the data flowing across the screens. Each message told the same story of chaos and destruction spreading across the civilized galaxy. "What exactly are we seeing, Officer Bae?" "The Drakmar Empire has begun aggressive expansion," Bae reported, his fingers dancing across holographic controls to organize the flood of information. "They have attacked 3 Zephyrian colonies in the past week alone. The Zephyrians are calling for help, but nobody is responding." Kim studied the tactical displays showing Drakmar warships moving through space like hungry wolves. The lizard-like Drakmar had always been aggressive, but something had held them back before. Now they moved with the confidence of predators who knew no one could stop them. "Sir, there is something else," Bae continued. "These distress calls are not just about the Drakmar. The Rigelian Collective is fighting the Tau Ceti Union. The Vegan Republic has declared war on the Centauri Alliance. Ancient conflicts are erupting everywhere." Kim realized what was happening with growing amazement. Without human peacekeepers to mediate disputes, old hatreds are surfacing. We were the diplomatic glue holding fragile alliances together, and nobody realized it until we were gone. For decades, human diplomats and peacekeeping forces had quietly resolved conflicts across the galaxy. When the Rigelians and Tau Cetians argued over mining rights, humans had found compromise solutions. When the Vegans and Centaurians faced trade disputes, human mediators had prevented war. The galaxy had grown so accustomed to human problem-solving that they had forgotten how to solve problems themselves. Meanwhile, on the Council homeworld, High Chancellor Vextar paced frantically through his crystalline palace chambers. The beautiful geometric walls that once brought him peace now felt like a prison. Reports flooded in from across his crumbling empire, each one worse than the last. His crystal body, normally a brilliant diamond white, had turned dark gray with stress. Rainbow lights that usually danced across his surface flickered weakly like dying stars. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, was falling apart. Chancellor, his aide announced, entering the chamber with obvious fear. The Manthari Mining Consortium has declared economic bankruptcy. Without human mining technology, they cannot extract enough resources to pay their debts. Their entire civilization faces collapse. Vextar's crystalline face cracked with frustration. What about the Kalari agricultural worlds? Famine spreads across all their colonies, the aide reported. Without human farming innovations, they cannot feed their population. Millions face starvation. They are begging us for aid, but we have no solutions to offer them. The reports continued like hammer blows against Vextar's pride. 17 species had withdrawn from council treaties, claiming the council could no longer protect them or solve their problems. The mighty Drachmer were testing everyone's defenses, growing bolder with each successful attack. How did those primitives become so important to galactic stability? Vextar wondered aloud, his voice echoing through the empty chamber. They were just one species among hundreds. How did everything fall apart so quickly without them? His aide hesitated before answering. Perhaps, Chancellor, they were not as primitive as we believed. Light years away, Captain Park Ji-yu commanded the human research vessel Discovery as it explored the outer edges of human space. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering that had emerged from humanity's forced isolation. Where alien vessels were built for beauty or intimidation, human ships were built for effectiveness. Admiral Kim Park reported through the quantum communication system that connected all human colonies instantly. Our isolated development has led to advances that exceed anything in the galactic databases. We have achieved faster-than-light communication without relay stations. Our terraforming technology can make dead worlds bloom in months instead of centuries. The holographic image of Admiral Kim appeared on her bridge, nodding with satisfaction. Excellent work, Captain. What about defensive capabilities? Our new shield technology can deflect energy weapons that would destroy Council battleships, Park explained, bringing up technical displays that showed remarkable innovations. Our engines can achieve speeds that alien sensors cannot even detect. Most importantly, our manufacturing systems can build anything we need using only basic materials. Park looked out at the stars through her ship's transparent aluminum windows. Admiral, the isolation meant to weaken humanity has instead created a technological powerhouse. While the galaxy that rejected us falls into chaos, we grow stronger every day. The quarantine was producing exactly the opposite effect that the Galactic Council had intended. Humanity, cut off from alien influence, had rediscovered their greatest strength, the ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome any challenge. Meanwhile, the galaxy that had grown dependent on human solutions was learning too late how much they needed the species they had cast out. The end. 2 years had passed since the galaxy tried to erase humanity from existence. What began as punishment had become the greatest disaster in galactic history. The Drachmer Empire, sensing weakness across the stars, launched their most ambitious military campaign in centuries. General Oh Kyung-soo stood in the war room of Earth's Defense Command, surrounded by holographic displays showing the destruction spreading across Zephyrian space. The lizard-like Drachmer had unleashed their full military might against the crystalline empire that had once seemed untouchable. "Look at these battle reports," General Oh said to his senior staff, pointing at tactical screens that showed Drachmer fleets overwhelming Zephyrian defenses. The Council's own forces are completely inadequate. Their over-reliance on human peacekeeping has left them defenseless against real military threats. The images were devastating. Zephyrian crystal cities shattered under Drachmer bombardment. Beautiful geometric spaceships cracked like breaking glass against crude but effective Drachmer warships. In 2 years without human military advisors, the Zephyrians had forgotten how to fight. "Sir," reported Colonel Kim Min-jun, studying intelligence data flowing in from across the galaxy. "The Drachmer are not just attacking randomly. They are targeting every world that ever cooperated with humans. This is revenge for the peacekeeping operations that stopped their expansion in the past." General O nodded grimly. For decades, human peacekeeping forces had quietly prevented Drachmer aggression. When the Lizard Empire tried to invade weaker neighbors, human diplomats had negotiated truces. When diplomacy failed, human military forces had provided just enough strength to maintain balance. Now, with humans gone, the Drachma were settling old scores. Across the galaxy, on the plague-ravaged world of Keltos Prime, millions of innocent beings lay dying from a disease that human medical technology could cure in days. The planet's surface was covered with emergency medical camps where alien doctors worked desperately to save lives with primitive treatments. Dr. Veltar, chief medical officer of Keltos Prime, stared at reports showing the death toll climbing every hour. His six-armed body shook with exhaustion as he moved between patients who suffered from a bacterial infection that attacked nervous systems. "We have the biological data," Dr. Veltar told his medical team through their translation devices. "We know exactly what causes this plague. But human doctors developed the only effective treatment, and the quarantine laws forbid any contact with them." The irony was bitter. Human medical databases contained detailed information about similar diseases. Human pharmaceutical companies had produced medications that could stop the plague within weeks. But Galactic Council law made it a crime punishable by death to seek human medical assistance. Meanwhile, on the Council homeworld, High Chancellor Vextar stood alone in the vast chamber where 847 species had once gathered in unity. Now the chamber echoed with emptiness. Only 43 species remained loyal to the Council, and even they attended meetings reluctantly. Vextar's crystalline body had lost most of its brilliant color. Where once rainbow lights had danced across his surface, now only dim gray shadows moved. His empire, which had dominated the galaxy for 1,000 years, was crumbling faster than he could comprehend. "Chancellor," his remaining aide reported with obvious reluctance. "The Manthari have officially withdrawn from all council agreements. The Rigelian Collective has formed their own defense alliance with the Tau Ceti Union. Over 400 species have now abandoned the council completely." The numbers were staggering. In just 2 years, the galaxy's greatest political organization had collapsed. Species that had cooperated for centuries were forming new alliances, fighting old wars, or desperately trying to contact the humans they had helped to banish. On the human diplomatic station orbiting Earth, Ambassador Song Eun-ji received her first official communication from galactic civilization in 2 years. But the message did not come from the Council or any major empire. Instead, it came from individual worlds begging for help. President Nam, Song reported through secure quantum communication to Earth's capital. "I have received over 3,000 separate requests for assistance in the past week alone. They are bypassing the Council entirely. Individual planets want to trade with us directly." The messages were desperate. Agricultural worlds offered their entire annual harvests in exchange for human farming technology. Mining colonies promised rare minerals for human extraction equipment. Medical facilities begged for human doctors to help with diseases their own physicians could not cure. "They are willing to break galactic law to get human assistance," Song continued. "The quarantine is becoming meaningless because nobody wants to enforce it anymore." Back on Earth, President Nam Eugene convened an emergency meeting of her cabinet in the secure conference room beneath the Capitol building. Around the table sat the leaders of humanity's greatest achievement, a civilization that had not only survived galactic rejection but had grown stronger because of it. "The situation is clear," President Nam began, activating holographic displays that showed the chaos spreading across known space. "The galaxy is fracturing into hundreds of competing factions. The old order is dead. The question we face is simple but crucial. What kind of civilization do we want to build from the ashes of their failed system?" Defense Secretary Lee Sung-min leaned forward. "Madam President, we have the military strength to impose our will on any remaining opposition. Human fleets are now superior to anything the galaxy can field against us." "But do we want to become conquerors?" asked Foreign Minister Park Hae-jin. "Or do we want to build something better than what came before?" President Nam looked around the table at faces that had guided humanity through its darkest period. "The quarantine was supposed to isolate us and make us weak. Instead, it has revealed our crucial importance to galactic civilization. Now we must decide how to use that power." The galaxy that had tried to destroy humanity was learning too late that they had destroyed themselves instead. The end. 3 years had passed since the galaxy made its greatest mistake. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, now carrying the title Supreme Commander of the Independent Human Alliance, sat in his command center aboard the massive space station that had become humanity's new capital. The communication array crackled to life with an incoming transmission that would have seemed impossible just months before. The holographic image that appeared showed High Chancellor Vextar, but the proud crystalline being who had once banished humanity was gone. In his place stood a broken leader whose diamond-like body had turned dull gray. Cracks ran across his surface like spider webs, and his voice trembled with desperation. "Commander Kim," Vexstar said, the words clearly painful for him to speak. We request your assistance. The Drachmer have taken half our territory. Our people are dying in numbers we cannot count. Our beautiful crystal cities lie in ruins. Please, we need your help." Kim looked at the image of his former enemy with a mixture of sadness and resolve. 3 years ago, this same being had declared humanity a threat to galactic peace. Now he begged for the help of the species he had tried to destroy. Standing beside Kim, Admiral Park Jiu shook her head firmly. Once a junior diplomat, she now commanded humanity's diplomatic operations across the galaxy. "Not to the Council, sir," she said quietly but with steel in her voice. "We will help individual worlds that need assistance, but we will not legitimize the system that tried to destroy us." Kim nodded in agreement. "High Chancellor, the Human Alliance will provide aid to Zephyrian colonies that request help directly. But we will not recognize the authority of the Galactic Council that voted to quarantine us." Vexstar's image flickered with what might have been relief and despair mixed together. "I understand," he whispered before the transmission ended. The human response was swift and decisive. Across the galaxy, human fleets moved with purpose and power that no alien civilization could match. But they did not come as conquerors. Instead, they came as liberators, offering help to any world that asked for it directly. Human medical ships arrived at plague-ravaged worlds and cured diseases in days that had killed millions. Human agricultural experts transformed barren planets into gardens that could feed entire star systems. Human peacekeeping forces stopped wars that had raged for decades, not through overwhelming force, but through fair solutions that gave everyone what they truly needed. Each rescued world received the same message: the old council system was finished. A new order was beginning, built on cooperation instead of control. On New Geneva Station, humanity's gleaming new diplomatic headquarters, President Nam Eugene prepared to address the reformed Galactic Assembly. The station orbited Earth but served beings from across known space. Its halls buzzed with representatives from hundreds of species who had chosen to abandon the failing council system. President Nam walked to the central podium in the Great Assembly Hall, looking out at faces that represented hope for a better future. Some were familiar allies who had secretly supported humanity during the quarantine. Others were former enemies who had learned too late the value of human leadership. "My fellow citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast chamber. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council tried to outlaw us from your civilization. You voted to cut us off completely, believing this would make you stronger and safer. She paused, letting the weight of history settle over the assembled delegates. Instead, you outlawed yourselves from the future. While you clung to old systems that no longer worked, humanity built something better. While your civilizations fell into chaos and war, we created new technologies and new ways of living together in peace. The hall remained silent as President Nam continued. "Today we offer you a choice. You can cling to the dying council system that failed you, or you can join the new Galactic Confederation, built on principles of equality, innovation, and mutual cooperation." The response was overwhelming. Over 600 species formally joined the Confederation that day, abandoning the council system that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. The new organization operated on completely different principles than the old council. Instead of a few powerful species making decisions for everyone else, each world had an equal voice. Instead of rigid traditions that never changed, the Confederation encouraged innovation and new ideas. Humanity and its closest allies provided technological and diplomatic leadership, but they shared their knowledge freely with anyone who wanted to learn. The galaxy began to bloom with prosperity and peace that had been impossible under the old system. Meanwhile, in the empty halls of the original council chambers, High Chancellor Vexstar met with representatives of the 43 species that still clung to the old ways. Their empire had shrunk to a tiny fraction of its former size. Most of their territory had been lost to the Drachmer or had simply declared independence to join the Confederation. "How did this happen?" asked the Regelian delegate, his metallic voice echoing in the nearly empty chamber. "How did the species we tried to quarantine become the leaders of galactic civilization?" Vexstar looked around at the few remaining council members and felt the weight of his terrible mistake. "We thought we were punishing them for being different," he said quietly. "Instead, we freed them to show the galaxy what real leadership looks like." Back on New Geneva Station, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the observation deck watching ships from dozens of species dock at the station's ports. The sight filled him with quiet satisfaction. Commander Won Ji-ho, his trusted aide, approached with the daily reports. "Sir," one reported with obvious pleasure, The last of the Kalari colonies has officially joined the Confederation. They have completely abandoned the old council system. That makes us the government of choice for over 90% of known galactic civilization. Kim nodded, watching a beautiful Kalari transport ship land gracefully in the station's main docking bay. They thought they were punishing us, he said quietly, remembering the day 3 years ago when the council had voted to isolate humanity. Instead, they taught the galaxy what it was like to live without human innovation, diplomacy, and leadership. The quarantine was officially over, but its effects would reshape galactic civilization forever. Humanity had not just survived their isolation. They had used it to become the foundation of a new and better galaxy. The end.